Today I have Michael Pacheco here with me to talk about infrared photography. Say hi, Mike, to Camera Clara.
Hi everyone, how you doing?
Awesome. So I met Michael. Can I call you Mike?
Sure thing,
Yeah.
man.
I met Mike in events in New York City in the Peak Design store, where they organize these events. Like kudos for Peak Design for organizing all of these photo walks and photographic events. They one day an infrared photography, and I am interested by that matter. And I went there and I met Mike. So I got my film camera and I took some photos, and I was like fascinated by the work he showed in this event. It is something called Kindling for Reality, which we are going to talk about in this live streaming, but it's a project that Michael does with infrared photography. And let me share my screen and show some pictures from that day. I got my film camera and I was walking in Manhattan, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to that Peak Design event. I'm going to take pictures. I'm going to create a nice blog post to illustrate everything. And then I took this one, and then that one, and then that one. And then, like, what happened here? It turns out that when I came back home, I was rewinding the film on my camera, and for some reason I felt the click of like it's the end of the rewind, and I opened the door and
No.
I burned all the photos, but I saved this one.
Hey,
Like, there he is in the Peak Design store doing the Kindling for Reality infrared photography
nice.
thing. So I got this and that other one. These
Cool.
ones that were blanked were also pictures I took from Mike's photos in Peak Design, but I only had these two. So
It's okay.
he has a very nice presentation about infrared photography, and with a slideshow and everything that I am going to share soon. But first, we are both laying back in our households and the comfort of our households, and I hope you that is watching us is also laid back and enjoying. So, Mike, why don't we start talking about what exactly is infrared photography? And what do you think? What makes infrared photography so compelling for you? Let me share the slide you sent me, the slide deck you sent me,
Sure.
and then people will already see um, what infrared photography looks like. But meanwhile, I think these questions are good to start. Like, what is infrared photography, and why do you think it's so compelling?
Sure. So, infrared photography is a form of photography where you isolate specifically the infrared spectrum of light. So, if you think about all of the light that we see is in the visible spectrum. In fact, actually, it's so this is going to be kind of fun because we have the slides here. And I actually have a nice little slide right about the electromagnetic spectrum, which is all of the wavelengths of light. And then there's a tiny slice in there. There we go. There's a tiny slice in there that we call visible light that we can see. And in there, of course, is all the colors that we know and love. And infrared light is right after the color red, which is 700 nanometers. Anything that is past 700 nanometers up to 850 nanometers, we would call near infrared light. And we feel that as heat. That is what we refer to when we talk about infrared uh, photography. Most
I
of
see.
the photographs that I take use a special filter that allows for the isolation of some visible light and a section of infrared light. And if you were to look at the most of the other filters that just allow in infrared light, you'd see this very opaque filter that you can't look through. Um, and that's because it's blocking out all of the visible light and only allowing the infrared light.
Yeah. So light traverses in the air, and whatever is has a wavelength that is very small is cosmic rays and gamma rays and X rays, right?
Yes, yep,
Then
that's
it gets the
the most,
ultraviolet,
yeah, yep, yep,
which is the UV light, which is like what these regular UV that people use on their cameras to protect the lens. They filter
yeah.
these, but these are outside the visible light spectrum. So that's why maybe some people say there is not too much difference on using and not using an UV filter.
Yeah, I think the original idea was to stop the UV light that was, coming through a scene. Let's say you're photographing a landscape from far away, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's a really bright day and there's a lot of excess UV light, when you were shooting film, it could kind of wash out some of the detail and I think add a slight tints, very, very slight
Got it.
tints to the image.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, hilariously enough, that's mostly not necessary now, and we just use them as right to protect our lenses. But there was a pretty legitimate reason to use a UV filter back when you shot film in really bright daylight.
Interesting. So there's the visible light, and
Yep.
the sensors for modern cameras, they actually capture more than the visible light. The reason why we don't see it is because there is a filter in front of the sensor that
Yes.
filters out all of these lights that are on this right side of this spectrum here, right?
And I actually have I have my Sigma camera here, and I actually was able to pop that filter out. So what we're looking at right now is the bare sensor, but usually there's a little filter right here that stops that light from coming through. That's called the IR cut filter, and on this camera, I was able to
Ah,
just pop it.
I see. What did you do on that camera to turn that? Because that's. Do you buy the camera like that, or you
So
modify it?
that's a good question. So Sigma is one of the few companies that has made cameras that have a IR cut filter. Most of them, it's right in the stack.
Mm-hmm.
You're not able to remove that without taking the whole camera apart and actually taking the physical filter off of the sensor. Then at that point, we call that a full spectrum conversion. You replace it with a clear piece of glass, and then all of the light that the sensor is sensitive to, the visible light, the UV light, the infrared light, can all hit the sensor.
It will pass through. I see.
And in this case, right now, this is full spectrum, and I put my lens on, and I'm using a specific filter on the front right here,
Uh huh.
made by Calori Vision,
Uh
called
huh.
their IR Chrome filter, which is letting in visible light and some infrared light. And
Then
that
you make that filtering on the lens rather than in the sensor.
exactly. And then I
So
can
you
pick
remove
whatever type of filter I want.
Yeah, so you remove that coating from the sensor by modifying it, and then you put the same filter on the lens in the sensor. So you have the flexibility of
Yep.
using that camera as a normal camera by using the same filter. I know there are nuances on that, but in a nutshell,
Mhm.
that's what it does.
100%.
Interesting. Let me bring back the screen share here again with the light
Mhm.
spectrum so people can see. So that's
Yeah.
infrared photography. It's capturing extra information than what our eyes see, right?
Yep.
So here's the thing. I've heard like in the past that birds can see ultraviolet. Is that true? Do you have any info about that? It's a
I don't
curiosity.
know. I don't know if birds can. I
Uh-huh.
know bees can. The bumblebees can see in UV light.
Interesting.
And actually, if you were to photograph, if you were to take a bunch of different flowers and photograph them in UV light, there's a pretty good chance that you would see a pattern on the flower that you can't see with your eyes, that is not visible in the regular, what we call the visible light spectrum,
For
400 to
him.
700 nanometers. But for bees, they see these patterns that we can't see, and we know a little bit about the fact that the bees are able to recognize certain types of flowers based off of that pattern, among many other things. Right? I'm not a scientist.
Uh-huh.
I've just done a little bit of reading. It's probably more complicated than that, but yes, certain flowers photograph differently in UV light,
That's
and of
interesting.
course infrared light.
Cool.
But birds, actually, this is just a really fun, quick thing. Birds are able to sense the polar alignment, and there's a chance that they actually can see uh, the what we need a compass for, right, to navigate. Apparently, birds can see something to do with that
Or-
electromagnetism, which is
Orientation.
amazing. I believe I want to say it is Radiolab, the podcast Radiolab. I think did a podcast specifically on this. It was very, very fascinating.
Very cool.
But yeah,
Very cool. And let me go through the slides, and then you just comment the slides via voice, and I pass them because
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
sharing my screen. So, what is kindling for reality?
Kindling for reality, uh,
Kindling.
kindling for reality, uh, was basically the culmination of a 10 to 12-year project where I started experimenting with infrared photography in college, which you'll see on this next slide. That first image on the left is a regular photograph, and on the right is the same location with a very cheap infrared filter, probably something like 850 nanometers. And I had to actually put the camera up tripod and pump the ISO all the way up and keep it open. And that's why that hot spot in the middle comes from all of the infrared light refracting right in the center of the lens, which I didn't find out till far later. But that was captured in 20, I believe 20, did I say 2014, I think?
Mm-hmm.
2013, 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So that's the
Do you
first
lose
one.
f-stops? Like, do you have to compensate when you remove that?
So when you're putting a filter over a regular camera and you haven't modified anything, you lose a whole bunch of light and you have to compensate for that with
Mm,
ISO and you have to put it on tripod and you might get these weird artifacts. Um, when you use a camera like this that is modified for infrared, that is full spectrum, and then use filters on the front, you have no issues with exposure besides the fact that the camera is perceiving light that it is not accustomed to. So because of that,
got it.
it's not going to meter the same way you think. It's not going to react. The software in the camera and the software in editing systems will not react the same way.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of trial and error to get the color right.
I see.
Colorivision made this incredible IR chrome filter,
Mm-hmm.
which we'll talk a little bit about later when we talk about like maybe the history of. But
Mm-hmm.
this filter and the modification allows for relatively regular.
Interesting. That's why it's important to meter through the sensor, not externally, right?
Yeah, especially in the
Like
digital
the
case.
SLR, for example. I see that being impossible on the SLRs, right? Because you're not metering through the sensor.
Yeah, and actually, if you were shooting aerochrome film, which is the primary, it was called aerochrome 3 film, which was the primary film that was used to create these red surrealist hues that you get. The traditional photo that when people think of infrared photography, they think of this, the red trees and the sky is blue and there's a heavy amount of contrast, right? That all comes from aerochrome 3. And it was so popular in this that many 35 millimeter lenses have this little red line on them, and that is so that you can adjust your focus to make sure you're getting the image in focus. Because if you're shooting for infrared light, the focus shifts slightly. But it's fun that you can
Hmm.
see that little relic, especially on the Pentax K1000 lenses, the K-mount lenses from the 80s. You see a little red line um, in the center of the lens to help focus for that.
Interesting. So let me move forward and end up. Ta-da! So these are the color infrared that you took
Yeah, yeah. With this right here.
with that camera you're holding.
So to answer your one of your previous questions before about like why I think this type of work is appealing or interesting um, to me and why I think it is interesting to other people is infrared photography is a a view into a type of world that we cannot see and we cannot interact with. We feel it as heat, but we can't really comprehend this idea of the world being different than what we're accustomed to. And when you take infrared light and you create these kind of images, I really joke that I become a painter
Mm-hmm.
because I don't have you're taking light and you're making it look whatever color you want, right? And it just so
Yeah.
happens that this particular project, I decided to use the Colorivision's IR Chrome filter, which helps you get closer to this color red. But
Mm-hmm.
I used other types of infrared converted cameras to try and develop a visual language and style that eventually became this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's something interesting about about what it means to see the world very differently, not in color, not in black and white, but something that's almost ethereal and alien and almost magical. Um, and I think there's an appeal to that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like having a special device where you can see reality difference. So speaking about that, when you're using and when you're looking to that through the mirrorless camera, so you're
Mhm.
watching through the sensor in electronic screen, do you see these colors, or do you see something different, and you reach these colors by further editing the image?
If you skip all the way down, skips all the way through the slides, there should be a portrait. There should be three photographs, all the way down, all the way down. Keep going, keep going. We'll get a little fast preview. We'll go back to some of these,
Hmm.
and we'll talk a little bit about them. Um, but all of the images that, as we're scrolling through them, yeah, here we go. So these photographs here um, show you a little bit about what type of post-processing is required. So this one is using
Mm,
just hue adjustment in Lightroom, and
I
you can
see.
see just how much the colors shift. The luminance shifts, the hue shifts,
Hmm.
um, the and the color shifts also, or I should say, luminance, color,
I
and
see.
the saturation all shift. And this is just doing hue. So
Uh
the,
huh.
the images out of the camera, depending on the type of camera you're using, whether it's a Sony, a Fuji, a Canon, a Nikon, a Sigma, they're all going to look different at the raw stage.
Hmm.
All of the images that I have presented in this presentation have been edited. If you go to the next one, you'll see a slightly different take on this. Instead of adjusting the hue, this is just the tonal curve adjustment,
Uh huh.
and you can see how much contrast I was able to get out of this so that we had
Yeah.
a real usable image. Infrared, right, is Latin for below or under red. So your images really do look red, right?
Uh
We're
huh.
getting a smattering of red light, that 700 to 800 nanometer. Once we cross 700 nanometer, we're in infrared. So these cameras are capturing a little bit of both. It's like a bleed. And you can see that pretty clearly in this particular image.
Yeah, that looks very appealing. And the left one already looks interesting to look
Yeah, yep.
like in reality. This I assume has no edit.
That is no edit. Yeah, that's straight out of camera for the
Uh
raw
huh.
file. This was shot on a modified Fujifilm camera, X-T1.
Uh huh.
And to your point, in theory, you don't have to do anything to these photos if you really wanted to, but I think the magic comes when you start to come up with your own color palette
Hmm.
style, right? Like any other type of color editing, when people talk about, presets and talk about their own work and wanting to make it a bit more accessible to do this kind of stuff, what I'm essentially doing is I'm building my own custom presets. Though a
Uh
lot
huh.
of my early work, though, I didn't. I joke that the project took 10 years, right? Because I had to develop my own visual style, and I had to take a
Refinement. Yeah.
break. Yeah, I had to take a huge break. Where I shot just color for maybe 4 years straight, to really understand color theory better so that I could go back and apply my techniques to these images. Like this, for example, is a newly edited photograph from, something I shot in, I believe it was 2019. No, earlier than that, 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And this photograph looked essentially just red. And just the subtle adjustment in hue and saturation and luminance that I did to this image, like now for me, this is an image that I could put on a wall or confidently put in my um, greater body greater body of infrared work and point to it as an example of just how we constantly get better as
That's
photographers. We
interesting.
constantly
Yeah.
learn.
Recently, I got an orange filter to do black and white, and I
Mm,
do black and white JPEGs out of the camera. So when I look through the EVF, I can see the black and white with more contrast.
mm,
But when I shoot color, it's all orange, and it remembered
yeah.
me this because you were manipulating color spectrums that get in, but you were doing that like on steroids with a sensor that is capable of capturing all like beyond the visible color, right? So I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
see the chaos and how hard it is to get the domain over these colors when you're doing so.
Mm,
That's why I think it's fascinating because it's a craft. It's something that takes time to develop your own language and have um, the colors defined and and pleasing to see, right?
Yeah.
Without strong color casts, or it's not just getting a camera converted and taking photos in infrared and doing any sort of manipulation over the colors, and then you will be done with it. It's you have to shoot raw and you have to edit these raws, especially white. But what do you do with the white balance usually?
Oh, I am usually I'm dropping the regular Kelvin all the way down to like 2000, 1000. And then for the green tints and the magenta tints, I'm kind of finding a pleasing spot. And then from there, I will break down the entire um, set of colors by channel. And then I will adjust each color by hue, saturation, and luminance, depending on how it adjusts itself within the scene.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I joke that it's more like painting.
Yeah.
I would take photographs in infrared and I would sit on them for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I would revisit them. Let's say I remember in college, like there was one night I couldn't sleep. This is maybe 8 years ago. So I fired up Lightroom and I just tweaked a little bit.
I see.
Like, and you do that a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more,
I
and then you
see.
just trial by error.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I assumed that when you started, it was more by trial and error.
Yeah.
But how much of trial and error you reduced by learning color theory and what sliders to pull and push? Like, does studying the matter actually helps you be more bullseye when you edit? When you see a picture that a raw that looks like this, for example, and then like does is it just by amount of trial and error that you know which sliders to operate, or there is actual you need to study colors, like this is blue, if I change the hue on blue to that, it's going to turn out on these colors, because we are not dealing with the visible light spectrums. And I
Mm.
assume, I may be wrong, but I assume that Adobe Lightroom and these softwares, they are used to pull the sliders and render. It's like when I pull the sliders, seeing a negative image that I scan right before converting. It
Yeah.
all gets crazy. Like when I pull the sliders, it's like you pull to the yellow, think it's gonna result in yellow thing, and it does not, because it's so does understanding and studying and learning about color theory and color, like a colorist, does it change the result of the effectiveness of the editing on these?
So what I think that helps you do, so I want you to go back a little bit in the presentation. There's a section that's just on the Sigma Foveon camera, and that'll kind of give us a good example of, let's see, maybe it might have actually been, I guess it's actually further down. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, a little further. Okay, so what I would
Okay.
say is that learning to be, let's say you're a colorist, right? And you have exceptional craft over color, and you know what to change in these programs to get the colors that you want for regular color photography. That
Mm-hmm.
will not necessarily help you with what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's what I
But
imagine.
what it will help you do, right? And the reason why I wanted to show these photographs is Sigma's camera happens to be designed like slide film. So if we go back two slides, Sigma uses what's called a stacked sensor, not
Mm-hmm.
the stacked sensor that we think of that allows for faster output. Stacked as in there's three sensors stacked on top of each other,
Ah.
um, that they call the Foveon X3 direct image sensor. There's two versions. There's one called the Quattro and one that's just called the regular Foveon X3. There's one called the Merrill version. There's basically two main types. One is right what we have here. The top layer is blue, the middle layer is green, and the bottom layer is red. And when the
Right.
light penetrates through, you get every pixel gets the same value. 100% of the light hits each pixel.
So it's not a biofilter.
No, there's no bare filter. That color array
Right.
is not on
No
this.
Sigma does that.
So the idea, right, is that every pixel site gets 100% of every color
The photo
that
site.
it's supposed to be getting, every photon, yeah. And now what that's great, right? At 100 ISO, it's great. It's incredible. As soon as you start moving away from 100 ISO, you're multiplying the gain by 3. So 100
Mm-hmm.
ISO is giving you the kind of noise as 400 ISO, right?
Uh-huh.
200 ISO is going to be like 800 ISO. So you can't really, excuse me, you can't really move these sensors past 100, 400 ISO because you're multiplying the amount of gain. And on top of that, when we're using the penetrative property of silicon, that light can penetrate through that silicon, and we're using that to create a sensor, right? And that's great, but the light scatters. The photon itself bounces around when it does that, and that creates more noise and creates sometimes color bleed, where the colors will bleed into.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I'm telling you all this is it took me figuring out to take off the filter of this camera and combining it with the colorivision filter to even think about getting close to the look that I wanted. But before I even did all that, I thought this idea was really interesting because it's designed much like slide film. So
Mm-hmm.
if we go down one,
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
so that's the idea. Um, and if we go forward a few into the images, the reason why I wanted to use this camera when I learned about it was because I noticed that the colors were very intense, very true to life, very much like slide film.
Interesting.
I felt like I needed to have a better grasp of color before I could really understand how to do infrared. So I had all of the tools to do infrared in 2019, 2020, but I felt like I didn't have a grasp of color. And using this camera, which was so limited and so difficult to use,
Yes.
helped me focus on what made for an interesting color image. And to answer that is all to say that that experience helped me better understand composition for black and white, right? And it helped me figure out how I could fuse the best of color photography, the best of black and white photography into this infrared work.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what you're doing, like you said, if you're a colorist, you're going to slide everything around. You're not going to get what you want. But you can take color theory and balance and tonality and understanding mood and texture and tone, and you can funnel all that into the theory is what can help you create these images, but the actual technical side
Yeah.
is
And these
really
were
coming,
straight out of
yeah,
camera. The
straight out of
contrast
camera,
here.
yeah.
Yeah, the
Hmm.
contrast is interesting. It reminds me of slide a lot. These
Yeah,
are JPEGs out of the camera.
yep.
Um, so
So yeah,
I
can't be
haven't
a
heard.
regular colorist. A lot of theory though, a lot of color
Yeah,
theory,
yeah, I haven't heard of
and then a
this.
lot of practicing with the files and seeing what adjusts what, and then breaking them all down into, if I move this slider, okay, if I adjust this tonality, I'm adjusting this. If I adjust the hue here, I'm adjusting this. And then again, you
Yes.
just like getting familiar as a real colorist, you're doing that, but just for infrared. And
Yeah,
each
yeah,
file type is different. So if you're using one camera, if you use a Fujifilm converted camera, it's not going to act the same way as a Sigma converted camera or a Canon or a Sony. They're all different.
interesting. And where and how did you learn all that? I assume there was lots of self learning on this, but if you would
Yeah.
give advices for people who is starting, what do you recommend them watching and learning? How was your learning path on all of these over the last decade?
A lot of it was trial and error. Um, like I said, I took that break in 2019, um, where I just experimented myself. I mean, I guess there's a few things you could do. I think it's important, and this isn't something that I did, but I think it would be useful to, watch other creators and other photographers who are working with infrared. There are a bunch of people now that I can think of that do this, and you can poke around to see what other work people have done. You can look outside of traditional photography, and you can look into painting. You can look into kind of alternative forms of photography, cyanotype uh,
Hmm.
process to get inspiration. And as for getting an infrared converted camera, I would say, if you really want to, you don't have to get a converted camera to mess around, right? Like you can get a, $50 800 nanometer filter like I did and throw it on your camera, put it on a tripod. You're going to get some weird hotspots. Maybe you just tape you tape the center of your frame and you only use the corner, right? And you're committing to low resolution,
Hmm.
small images. But again, for a lot of people, it's something that they're interested in, but don't want to dive fully in. And you don't have to do that, right? I joke that I want people to make weird and interesting photography. And by me sharing this work, if you fully commit, right, like you can do projects like this, but you don't have to do, you don't need high resolution. You don't need sharp images. This idea that the perfect photograph looks a certain way, I think holds a lot of people back. And so if you go through a little bit, actually, before we do the main work, if you go all the way back up to the Fujifilm work, um, yeah, all back, if we go back through some of this, all of this work is all shot, from 2016 to 2019, and they're all experiments.
Uh-huh.
This experimental phase is where a lot of people, I think, stay,
Hmm.
and that's okay, right? Like you can make a cool looking individual image. Like this image on the right, I love this photograph. Um, but it can't really sit in a greater body of work because I haven't developed the skill set to create a visual language that I wanted to commit to for a project. And
Hmm.
the kindling for reality work really is what happens when you take a single aesthetic that you develop and you commit to it. And you don't have to do that in infrared. You can tweak your colors, right, to look a certain way. I know there are some people who online who do who have like faux infrared presets.
Hmm.
If you really, really don't want to commit to converting a camera, and I don't blame you, right? It's expensive, it takes a lot of practice. You could just do that, right? Like you don't have to go all the way in to
Hmm.
experiment. I think the best
Hmm.
thing that anyone can do that I can recommend is just start messing around with your hue and saturation and your luminance in Lightroom. See what they do, understand how they work, make something weird out of a regular color photograph first. And if you
Hmm.
think that's a cool idea and you enjoy that process, then get a filter. If you take some work that you really like, that you've now started to apply some of these ideas, okay, maybe we think about getting a more affordable camera, a point and shoot camera. Calori
Hmm.
Vision sells a point and shoot camera that is, you know, they've removed
Yeah.
the filter and it comes with a set of filters. It's like, I don't know, somewhere between 200 and 400 bucks. That's a
Yeah.
small
And
investment and you can start experimenting, right?
yeah, and once you convert, can you use a filter on top of the lens that would revert it?
100%. You can put an IR cup filter in front of your lens and your converted
Yeah.
camera is now a regular camera again.
Uh-huh.
And you
That
can take it
matches
off
what had been removed from the sensor, right? So if you
100%.
do full spectrum on the sensor, you can put a filter that filters the spectrum, the full spectrum, and only lets pass visible light.
Yep. Yeah. So that's a good point. If you really do enjoy doing this, you can fully commit and you can just get the right set of filters and then you can shoot regular color photography again.
That's interesting. I know that Fujifilm sells, I think it's the X100V or
They
a full
have,
spectrum version. It's hard to find though.
yeah, there's an XH2, I think, XH2 infrared,
Uh huh.
the GFX 100, the second infrared. I
Oh,
believe
the medium
a long
format.
time ago there was a discontinued XT1 IR. I don't know if that was available to the public.
Uh huh.
And then there's the XE4 extended spectrum. I think
Uh
that
huh.
one. I think that is technically still available. They are hard to get,
They're hard to
and
get, yeah.
those
But
are
it's interesting because
officially converted.
yeah, because it doesn't void the warranty, right? So that's one
Hmm.
of the advantages. Because when you send to Colari Vision or to a company that would tamper with the sensor in that sense, you're voiding the warranty.
Yes, yeah,
And
you are.
is there a way to revert, like to send to Colari and say apply the filter again in this sensor?
I've never checked into it, but I don't see why not, right? You're essentially just doing the same thing in reverse.
Yeah, and how do they
Should be
do that?
possible.
Is it a chemical bath on the sensor that removes the coating of the infrared
I
filter that sensor
think
has?
I think it depends on the camera. I believe for most of them, it really is a physical piece of glass that can just be
That get
removed with like a
removed?
pair of
Yeah,
tweezers.
I see.
I think it's that. Don't
Yeah,
quote me on that, but I think it's that.
that's very interesting. So, shall we talk about kindling for reality now?
Yeah,
What is the
sure,
program?
sure.
Because I
Sure.
think
So these images that
from
we're quickly going through, those were the preliminary things, right? We talked a little bit about this idea of experimenting, but without committing to a single theory, right? You kind of just get a bunch of really cool one-offs. Kindling for Reality was a commitment that I made to creating a style of these images for a single body of work that I
uh-huh.
started in 2024 after a friend of mine who I hadn't seen in 5 years. He came over from England, and he basically said to me like, "Hey, I know you have all the stuff to do infrared. I've seen some of your other work. I really, really want to see the camera." Um, so me and another friend, the three of us, we went on a walk, a photo walk, and I brought the camera, this camera, and it was a really hot day, really bright, a lot of sunlight, and I took 17 or 18 photographs that day, one of them being this image on the left. And when I got back, we looked at them and they were like, "Michael, you really should consider doing more of this." And I thought about it and I got a lot of great feedback from some colleagues and some friends. And I said, okay, for the next 4 months, I'm just going to only do this. I'm only going to photograph infrared. And these three images were the photographs that I used for the presentation and the 1 month small residency. I guess it was technically a residency on the wall in Peak Design.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the culmination of all of this work. And yeah, it's I called it Kindling for Reality because I thought it was an interesting way to bring to light this idea of what it really means to look behind the curtain of what we're used to seeing, right? When you peek behind the curtain of reality and, literally light it on fire, you get something totally different. And this
Mm-hmm.
is this is what I
These are beautiful.
so it took a little bit of time to come up with the color profile that I built.
Uh-huh.
These images would not have been possible without using Colorivision's IR Chrome filter on the Sigma SD Quattro H camera.
Mm-hmm.
Because we talked about the sensor, we talked about how its design work. It's like slide film.
Yeah.
I am mimicking Aerochrome 3 film, but not so much that it looks like the film, but I wanted it to feel reminiscent. I wanted to be my own twist on it. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted it to be iconic enough that if you looked at it, you could recognize that it was a photograph that I took,
Mm-hmm.
and that you don't necessarily need to know if it's infrared or not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that I think is really important. I think the fact that they just look different and maybe they cause you to check your perception to figure out like why does this look like this.
And
That's kind of what I'm trying to accomplish.
it's interesting because the sky continues being blue, and I think you that vegetation. I don't know if it's green or yellow that rendered this red.
So the all of the foliage turns green due to something called or excuse me, turns red due to something called the wood effect.
Uh huh.
Not because anything to do with wood. The person who discovered the effect, his last name was Wood. um, but that is when the infrared light is reflected off, radiates off of the leaves.
Yeah, there's something about the foliage. And you mentioned film. How would that be possible of doing on film? Did Kodak or did they have a film where you put in the camera and you develop and you had that?
Yes, that film was called Aerochrome 3.
Uh huh.
I don't have any in the slide deck because I didn't really want to take from other people's work. Obviously, if you just type in Aerochrome film, you'll get a bunch of photographs online. I encourage people to do that. There's a few people who have shot the remaining stocks of it. It was discontinued in 2008, and there was one person who took it upon themselves to buy up a bunch of the old stock and painstakingly cut it by hand. And that person, I believe, sold all of those rolls, and now Aerochrome is it's done. There's a few rolls left on eBay in cut for medium format and cut for 35. They probably came from that one gentleman. Um, there's a British photographer who I believe did a bunch of work with this. Richard Moss is another photographer who did work in the Congo in infrared film. So there were a few people have done it,
And is it
but no one has
C41?
really been.
Are you developing C41? You know,
I think so. I think so.
interesting.
But no one
Kodak
was really
Aerochrome.
doing. Yeah, Kodak Aerochrome 3. Yeah, Kodak Aerochrome 3.
Oh, Analog Cafe has that. I love that blog.
Yeah, there you go, right? Like there's a bunch of people who have really, really taken it upon themselves to preserve this work and, show the artistry. And at the time, I didn't really, I never really used reference images,
Mm-hmm.
but I've seen some of, it's like in the zeitgeist, right? It's in your head, like you see photographs, right? And yeah, there's a lot of, oh, there's that awesome chart about, that chart's great about the I believe that is from the Kodak manual.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think I found it somewhere else too. But yeah, that it just shows exactly how the slide film and what is being switched and what colors are being switched and why you need a yellow filter. You need a yellow filter if you're shooting the film
Mm-hmm.
to properly block out the blue light so that the blue channel is empty
Mm.
so that you can properly get this look. Um, a little bit about the history. Aerochrome film was originally a film developed for the military, for military use,
Mm-hmm.
so that you could look through, um, let's say, smoke on battlefields, right? It was eventually used. That was, I think, World War I or World War II, I believe. It was used for looking through smoke on the battlefield. In the Vietnam War, it was used to see structures of buildings by turning all the foliage turns red, the buildings stay black so that they pop out in the
Mm.
contrast. I
Interesting.
believe the first person who used the film as I think he was a pilot who Kalori or not Kodak gave this pilot a bunch of the film, and he had worked with it. He had become a photographer post-war life, and he I think was doing fashion photography. I believe that is the photographer who photographed the Are You Experience Jimi Hendrix album.
Mm-hmm.
That was all shot on Aerochrome, and that photographer, I think he's the person who gets the credit for really popularizing the film. And the psychedelic look that we think of is all from infrared. It's all from infrared.
That's interesting. Have you seen this film here, Santa Color 100?
No, I have not. Is that red scale film or is this a type of?
Yeah, I shot that film once. Launched as an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign. It's
Huh.
available at camerastore.com, which is like a store from Finland. And I shot
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm some people says it's arrow color,
yeah. I mean,
but now I even have that if I go to Camera Clara and search for Santa Color 100, I did a little
mm,
review of that film.
mm.
Some people say so Santa Color. No, yeah, Santa. Let me see. Santa Color 100 from Arius Verlon Stuart.
Oh, here we go.
And
Yeah,
Aero Color. Ah, okay. It's different. It's a different thing.
it's different. Yeah.
The Aero Color. It's yeah, Kodak Aero Color. It's not aerochrome. It's different.
Hmm. But there's I mean there's a bunch of different.
Because yeah,
It's hard to keep track of everything.
there's nothing of infrared on that, but it's also for aerial surveillance.
Yeah.
But this is on a I can see, like when I saw that arrow collar, I was like, I kind of didn't understand why people use that as aerial surveillance. But when
Hmm.
I see this and the smoke thing, as you said, for World War II and things like that, it makes
Yeah.
lots of sense, right? To see maybe even,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they
100%.
brought these to the moon to photograph some stuff there with their Hasselblads at the time.
You never know. I mean, it's
Yeah,
possible.
yeah.
That I know a lot of that was shot on, I believe, a custom black and white and a custom color film that they developed that had to be able to withstand more electromagnetic radiation. You have no atmosphere when you're on the moon, right? So
Hmm.
particles are slamming into it all over the place. So who knows what they were using and what, special things they had to do to protect that film.
Yeah, and I hope they start manufacturing it again. It would People would have a blast. Have you shot that, the
I
Aerochrome?
have not shot aerochrome film. No, it actually so it has a very, very low dynamic range because it's so expired, and it
Yeah.
has to remain at a very specific temperature. You get about 3 stops of dynamic range.
Mm-hmm.
As with the process that I'm using digitally, I'm getting about 7.5 to 8, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
stops of dynamic range. If you can
Mm-hmm.
just thumb through some of these photographs. These are the photographs from that I took in Greenwood Cemetery. I really tried to find different parks and public spaces in New York City where
Mm-hmm.
I needed places that had contrast
Mm-hmm.
um, against. I wanted obviously trees, right? I needed greenery, but I also wanted either ocean or not ocean, yeah, excuse me, water, sky,
Mm-hmm.
concrete, things
Mm-hmm.
that made for interesting contrasts. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's all about it, and it's all about showing subjects as they are. So a lot of it was finding the right subject matter to photograph.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, these are nice.
that's
I like when
thank you.
there's a single tree and it turns red.
Yeah, it's very visually satisfying to look at this work.
Yeah, yeah.
I've
And the
gotten so
interesting
many different. You're saying? I'm sorry.
No, and the interesting thing is that you kind of cannot, with a visible light spectrum camera, it's way harder to bend the sliders to reach into that. Like, you kind of benefit a lot from the full spectrum sensor to do this. Wow, these ones
Yeah,
are nice.
these images can only be made with isolating infrared and visible light. You need both. I guess technically what is happening is probably you are blocking out a specific wavelength of visible light and allowing in a certain frequency of infrared and visible, right? And I don't exactly know what is happening in the filter for this to be possible. I have a vague
Hmm.
idea, right? We can look at that Kodak chart that we looked at, kind of gives an idea of what's happening on the film side.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could technically get a certain set of gels that you could put together and get a
Hmm.
similar effect to the IR chrome. I'm sure someone has figured out how to do that.
Yeah. That one on the left remembers me the Wish You're Here album cover. The shaking hands.
Yes, yeah.
And you can start playing with these elements, like now that you know that this foliage will render in red,
Mm.
you can maybe make something that relates to blood and these. Have you played Diablo 4?
I have not. No, I
Like
haven't.
with Lilith and all the blood petals. So
That's funny.
it could have that. So
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I have a few photos in here um, that remind me of. There's another photograph. This was on Roosevelt Island,
mhm.
Manhattan, and somewhere there's a photograph of chairs that I took that remind me a lot. I don't think it's going to be in this particular set, unfortunately.
Mhm. Wow.
Yeah, a lot of them do have this. There's a little bit of liminality, right? This feeling of where is everyone? There's not many people. They're very empty. They're very surreal. And something about the way metal renders can be very strange.
Mm-hmm.
This
This,
next thing, what are you gonna say? I'm sorry.
yeah, no, no, it's fine. This is a very good picture. Like even without considering the color difference,
Mm.
the shadows and everything. But with the infrared, like I think that's my favorite.
I think the infrared just gives it this, like, you know how when you're cooking, right, and you need just enough salt to get like a zing. To
Mm-hmm.
me, the infrared allows some of my landscape to have a zing. Like to me, this
Uh-huh.
photograph would not be as interesting in color, right? Like you said, right? Everything is there. The composition's right, the shadows are right, the dynamic
Yeah,
range is right.
totally. And that's
But
what
in
people do with the
infrared,
black
it
and white.
just say that again.
That's why sometimes black and white hits because people don't see the world in black and white. So
Yeah.
every time you find a way to convey something that is different from what our eyes see on a daily basis, it caught the attention. And in this case, it's getting the attention for the better because there's good taste. It's something that our eyes can see without the equipment,
Mhm.
and with the equipment, it looks better because
Yeah.
I assume that when you have all this light spectrum coming through, it's hard to domain and to come out with something visually pleasing like that. There's lots of experience
You have
and
to
good taste.
separate you have to separate the channels, right? You have to
Yeah.
isolate the different. It's faux color photography, right? So I'm trying to make it so that I have a consistent visible language between all the photos. But this one you can see it's not quite the same as the other ones. The sky is a
Mhm.
little bit more
Green,
it's
green,
a little bit more turquoise, yeah. A
magenta.
little
Yeah,
bit more green in
turquoise.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And as you go through the photographs after this set of photographs, I laid it out as a book too. And
Mm.
just to see what it would look like, I made like a little lay flat 5x7. I was gonna actually have a copy here, but I actually misplaced it. I'm not sure where my demo copy is, but that's okay. We have it up here,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to think a bit more about what it would be to experience this as a book. So this is just a little example of laying it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you keep going, you'll start to see some of the more experimental stuff,
That's beautiful.
right? So here on the left is straight out of camera.
Mm-hmm.
The center one is the digital aerochrome profile I built, and then I built a new profile that I call Tangerine that addresses the red channel blowout. If you remember all the way back when we looked at um, that chart
Spectrum.
showing the light going through the
Uh-huh.
sensor, because of the stack sensor, notice how much of the red light and the infrared light is blocking the center
Yeah.
channel, and I was able
Yeah.
to adjust that and the luminance
Yeah.
slider and the hue and saturation. I had to use all three to re-isolate everything so that I could
Mm-hmm.
bring the orange out of the background.
Yeah. I think that displaying like that, the same picture with different treatment, looks very Andy Warhol.
I didn't
Have you
even
been
think
to
about
Dia
that.
Beacon? That museum in upstate New York, that Dia Beacon.
No, no, I haven't. No.
It's nice. They have a room with like 50 plus Warhol images, and they all
Mm,
look like this, like similar colors but variations, but in an
mm.
entire room, all the walls in the room, and
Oh,
like giant prints. So nice.
but yeah, and
Yeah,
it's like an ongoing experiment.
yeah, yeah. And what is this a panorama? I assume.
Yeah, this was a two or three image stitch that I wanted to really get. Um, I couldn't get
Hmm.
the fanning of the tree correctly, so I had to stitch these together. Yeah,
I see.
and I just left it as is. I thought it was interesting.
What do you think it would have? How is that at night?
Actually, keep going. I have one on here. If we keep
Oh,
going a
that
little
one on the
through,
left.
yeah, isn't that fun? This is in the snow. That's like
Nice.
snow on a door handle. I really like to play with abstraction, just in a
Uh
lot of my
huh.
work, but especially in infrared.
Uh huh.
So these are during the winter time. This is during the summer. This past summer, about 3 or 4 months ago,
Uh huh.
on where is this? Governor's Island.
Uh huh.
And then this is at night. This is at night. right around the corner
Interesting.
from the Peak Design store. Yeah, so what's
I feel
happening, right,
like
is we're getting some of the heat from the incandescent lights.
uh-huh.
They're not LEDs, so they're producing a lot of heat. I'm shooting at like a tenth of a second at like 400 ISO at f1.8 to get as much light as possible. If we zoom in on this though, the image is actually falling apart. There's not enough data. Just like reciprocity failure in film, right? You have to expose longer. For
Uh-huh.
some reason, because of the design of the sensor, you get a similar problem happens.
Hmm.
Digital sensor.
Interesting. Have you tried like 5 seconds, 10 seconds exposure?
Not yet. That's the next. That's probably the next thing. Really, is throw it on a tripod.
Yeah, it seems like there is a whole new photography. A whole, it doesn't seem like it is a whole new,
It is. Yeah.
like it's like discovering a camera for the first time.
Yes. In fact, if
Um,
my artist statement for this, I end the artist statement by essentially saying that the goal of the work is to inspire a renewed interest in infrared photography, because we really have only scratched the surface of what is possible with photography. And
yeah,
the reason why I wanted to show this work now is there's such an interest on the novelty of AI generated photography, for lack of a better term, but it's a
uh-huh,
quasi hallucination of something that is in the collective, like the collective artist consciousness, that all of this work has been scraped off the internet, right? And we're getting an aggregate of that work, but
yeah,
you don't have to do that, right? Like there are still things that we have not explored with regular old photography, right? And that's why I think this work is particularly appealing right now, is because it looks fake. It does not look real.
yeah,
It looks, in our time now, it looks maybe generated. But when I
uh-huh.
started doing this work 10 years ago, I had people go, "Oh, so you just put the images in Photoshop," which I didn't even use Photoshop.
Yeah,
Like it really is unexplored territory. And the more that I can show people what you can do with this genre, selfishly, I want to see more work. I want to see work like this. I want to see people experimenting and making, there is no such thing as a bad photograph.
hmm,
It's not a thing.
yeah.
And
Maybe
if we
with
zoom in on
the
this, right, this image looks technically bad. Like if you blew this up and you looked at it, you go, "Oh my God, there's noise everywhere. There's this, there's that," right? But it's that is irrelevant. That's irrelevant.
hmm, yeah, it is. It could be interesting also to play with light painting with a real lighter fire because
Yeah,
there's
for
heat,
sure.
right? Or candles.
Yeah.
Because when
Yeah,
you
and
start
you get
seeing heat,
blooming to the way the light
uh-huh,
bounces in the sensor. You get these weird halos that happen.
yeah. Because if we get that chart,
Yeah,
the heat, right? How about
yeah,
because like this makes me remember of astrophotography, and
yeah,
it's closer to. I know it's actually far because the infrared is after the visible light.
yeah. You would need
Have you
so
tried pointing that to the microwave oven and putting like photography of popcorn?
no. I probably because the camera is probably only getting somewhere between, I don't know, 300 nanometers to, let's call it 900 nanometers. You need a special camera. Yeah, I know. You need a special camera to see further past ultraviolet and further up infrared.
Maybe
Like
that's what
far
these
in
thermal cameras do.
correct. So I was just gonna say that is called far infrared
Yeah, which is like
infrared.
a longer.
Like think of your thermal camera, right? Like you just look like a bunch of colors, right?
Yeah,
That's far
yeah.
infrared.
Imagine if there is a camera capable of somehow representing radio signals on images. That could be like if you photograph an antenna, like a radio. These antennas could be interesting.
Well, so um you can catch the shadow of some of these faster particles.
Mm,
It's called a cloud chamber,
mm-hmm.
where you basically are, I forget exactly what you have to do. It's like a science experiment that people have done, where you are using a type of vapor in a fish tank,
Mm-hmm.
and we're being bombarded by all different kinds of particles all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
this fish tank with a specific vapor in it, you can actually see some of those particles move through the vapor. They kind of like streak, and you're catching the shadow of these really fast cosmic rays, just bouncing around. It's pretty amazing. So that's that is in itself a type of photography, right? You're moving the light, and you're getting this thing, and you can see that with your own eyes, right? Like the more you read about this, the more you read about the science side of this, the more you
Oh yeah,
realize just how crazy, right, the whole world
yeah,
is, the whole
yeah,
universe is.
yeah.
It's
And
like
I
a little door,
appreciate a lot the Kindling for Reality, which is making art out of these. Have you seen
Yeah.
that camera? It was like one of these MIT or one of these like very high end
Oh,
studies.
the James Webb Space Telescope, probably, right?
No, it's a camera that
Maybe.
can capture sound on
Oh.
image. So it's a video one, and it films the sound waves going back and forth, and it can use algorithms to revert that to what was being spoken in a room just by looking to the sound waves that are being filmed.
Hmm.
It's like when these people talk on stadiums and there's someone that
Hmm.
reads the ad lib and reverse engineers and say like, oh, they're talking
Yeah.
this and that, but it's like on a hardware level where they, I mean, it's still very primitive, but I'm pretty
It
sure.
almost sounds like sonar, right? With like a bat
Yeah, it's on
echolocation,
that area, it's on that field,
Yeah.
so it's very
Huh.
interesting. It's very interesting, and but let me go down on. I really like this one,
Yeah, it's a fun
the
one.
the one on the left.
That's in the Brooklyn Botanical Garden,
Cool.
in the Japanese pond area.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
And that one is also very nice.
I'm always looking for things that will photograph interestingly in infrared. I didn't
Yeah,
think there
that's
was
the magic.
anything to photograph in the winter, right? This is in the winter. That's snow.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know it's terrible. And that's the magic when you start seeing how the equipment would see. I like film because of that. When I load like Cinestill 800T, I know the halation things, and then
Yep.
I already know scenes in the real life, like strong highlights and things like that. I know that would render well on the 800T. I assume that with infrared, it's the same thing. And
I'm
you start,
thinking the same way.
yeah, that's very nice. It's very
I
cool.
think this is the most filmic digital process I could possibly do, which is pretty funny,
Hmm. How about
because the whole
portraits?
entire medium, the entire process is digital, but
Yeah,
so much of it comes from film.
yeah. How about portraits? Because I know Christopher Nolan, when he filmed Dune, for the black and white scenes where he wanted the milky faces from.
Oh, that was not Christopher Nolan. Oh man, am I blanking on his name? Was that Nolan? I can't remember now.
For Dune? No, no.
No, but was that Hoyt van Hoyema? Hoyt van Hoyda? Because he works with Christopher Nolan. We're probably gonna have to look this up.
Yeah.
It was who did Blade Runner 2049? It's one of my favorite movies. I'm blanking on the director's name. Um,
Denis Villeneuve?
yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Denis
Yeah,
Villeneuve.
they shot all of those scenes in
Yes.
infrared. Yes,
I
on the
have it
on the
here.
Harkonnen planet.
Yes, I have it here. Denis Villeneuve. I confused with the Christopher Nolan. So this is
Yes.
an infrared footage, right? Made on
Yeah.
film, probably.
Boy.
Infrared lenses. Look at that.
Yeah,
There's
I
no
don't
such
know. That's
thing.
probably not right.
You see, knowledge is power.
Yeah, it
But
really
because,
is.
yeah, because with the infrared, you have a more silky effect when you do black and white, and that's what he wanted to get
Yeah.
out of these.
Yeah, and you really see it. You really see it in that. There are two projects I want to do next. I spent some time this summer photographing the Azore Islands in infrared. I photographed some of so that those are the that's in San Miguel in the Azore Islands.
Mm-hmm.
And because I really wanted to see if I could capture the lava rock. There's a portrait of my father. I want to do, I photographed the Azore Islands, some of England. I was in
Hmm.
Brighton photographing that's the Seven Sisters Walk. I want to develop a blue preset, which, as you can see, right, this experimental part of it, some of these colors are very garish and look quite bad, to be honest with you. But that's part of the process. And that's kind of why I'm starting to try and develop a new color wave
Hmm.
and going through this work. And then another set of projects that I'm going to start doing is portraiture in infrared,
Nice.
which I've just started exploring about a month ago. So we're
Nice.
really, we're really starting to explore different genres and come up with new color textures and things like that.
Hmm. Yeah. I found the information about the Andy Warhol in the Dia Beacon Museum.
There it is.
So there it is. It looks interesting, right? You imagine you doing that with
Yeah, yeah.
infrared. That's why I said it
Mhm.
remembered me. 1978-79 installation, Dia Beacon, and the Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts. So you
Mm.
see, it's cool, right? Because it communicates a lot with the. Where is the slide? Yeah, with
There
that,
it is. Yeah.
it remembers me. It remembered me.
That's funny.
Yeah, Michael Warhol.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll see.
I'm rooting for it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
this has been great. I really appreciate you giving me the time and the space to talk about my work and talk about why I think creating work like this is valuable, and all types of experimental photography I think are worth exploring.
yeah, yeah.
And
I
that last slide is a
appreciate.
good example, right, of
Yeah,
how weird it can look. And that's the point. It doesn't have to look great
that's
um,
art.
until it is.
The by the book definition of art. I thank you a lot for participating and for coming here and speaking about infrared photography, the educational part of it, and also
Mm.
the work you did with it, the struggles you passed when collecting all that experience over these years and refining the process and giving like ideas on how to start the cameras, wavelengths. That's all very very valuable, and I think I'll be able to write a very cool post about it. So what's going to happen now is the ones that are on Substack, we did not have messages on the chat late night here in the US and even later in
Mm.
Brazil. Half of my audience in Brazil, and we are 2 hours behind Brazil, so it's like
Oh
midnight
yeah,
in Brazil.
very late in
But the
Brazil.
good thing is that we are using a platform that will allow me to download this video in high definition and post
Mm.
as a video post, Substack. And in that video post, I will put like links to your Instagram. My readers from Camera Clara can connect to you, and
Mm.
things like that. So it's very cool to have you here. Thanks a lot for participating.
Thank you.
I think that's it. We are 1 hour 12 minutes. I think it's a good mark for a live streaming.
Yeah,
I
I
also
think
think
so.
that it's very very long, like 2 hours, 3 hours. Um, I think it was nice. I think we were able to cover some very cool aspects,
Yeah,
and I'm going to make some short clips about interesting segments as well.
sure.
It's done automatically. That's the way I like using AI for as an
Mm.
assistant to help me identify interesting things, something that we primarily we create, and not offloading
Yeah,
our brains to that thing. It's like that's the good AI usage in my opinion. Like
yeah.
getting
I
the
think there's definitely something to be said for, like, turning this whole script. You don't want to do that by hand.
yeah, exactly.
Condensing it. It's really the creative stuff. Yeah, it's
Me too.
you want to do the creative stuff. We're
Of
photographers.
course,
We're
of course.
creators, right? Like, that's
Yeah,
the stuff that we really want to
yeah.
do.
There is a quote that says like ideally AI should do our taxes and chores so we can do art and poetry. But what's happening is that we are still doing the tax returns and chores while AI is doing poetry and generating images. Like no, no,
No,
like
this is
it's
not.
the
Yeah, we don't
opposite.
want
It should be
this.
the opposite. Exactly.
100%.
Yeah. So all right, Mike. Thanks for participating. I'm going to create a very nice post about it. And thank you,
Totally, Raf.
everybody, for watching us so far. I hope you enjoyed this live stream. Don't forget to write a comment below, say hi to Mike, connect with Mike in the post I'm going to create on Substack. There will be all the information, Mike's website, Mike's Instagram, how to see more of the reality. I said kindly, so English is not my my
It's
mother
okay.
language. It's Portuguese. So I thought it was kindly as like being kind.
No, it's okay. I had a typo on something I had, and I had a few people saying something similar, and I was like, yeah, it's okay.
Cool. All right, great. Thank you for coming and bye, and see you on the next one. All right, thank you.